Russian mythology is filled with stories of mermaids and other sea monsters lurking beneath the water's surface. Looking at this next video, we can understand why any Russian might respond with a polite "niet" when invited for a seaside swim. August 2018, Bering Sea, Russia. Two local residents take a leisurely stroll on the beach when they discover something hideous and enormous. They pull out their phones and record this.
Похудел. Обалдеть.
A mysterious sea creature washed up on the eastern coast of Russia. Now let's look at this thing. The enormous beast looks like it has a tail. It's white, and it looks like it's covered with some kind of fur hanging from the carcass. It doesn't appear to have a prominent face or eyes. It's about 20 feet long, and according to the witnesses, it smelled horrid.
Фу, как он воняет.
Field researcher Ken Gerhardt says Russian legend speaks of water spirits like the Vodyanoi, a slimy, bearded creature covered in scales that can pull people and animals underwater, break dams, drown crops, and wash away mills. This creature vaguely fits the description, but the Vodyanoi was traditionally found in rivers and lakes, not the sea. So Gerhardt points to another theory.
A story that surfaced on the internet talks about organism 46b. And according to the accounts, there was a Russian scientific expedition that was exploring under thousands of feet of ice in the Siberia when they encountered this giant, intelligent octopus-like creature that attacked their team, killing 3 of their members. Now, whatever you may think of this story, it's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility that there are giant unknown creatures that live at very great depths under the ice. For example, the colossal squid, the largest invertebrate on Earth.
The colossal squid, which can weigh over 1,000 pounds, was first discovered in 1925, living beneath the icy waters of Antarctica. And Gerhardt suggests one final theory. Perhaps this is not an aquatic creature at all, but possibly a long-lost remnant of the Ice Age.
This thing could be the remains of some ancient prehistoric Pleistocene megafaunal animal, something like a woolly mammoth, frozen in the permafrost for thousands of years.
A trend of rising temperatures has led to long extinct creatures being unearthed, and it's casting new light on prehistoric eras. In 2018, a team in Siberia unearthed mummified lion cubs that date back to the end of the Pleistocene epoch. That's right. In case you didn't know, Russia used to have lions. Let's see what our experts can unearth about this creature. Biologist Shay Steingast throws doubt on the idea that this could be the Vodyanoi, since it is known to have limbs which are out of place in the ocean.
It's said to have kind of a humanoid shape to it with possibly even legs. And that to me doesn't make sense because the ocean, especially the Antarctic Ocean, is very cold. And water tends to actually suck body heat from you faster than air, which is why humans can become hypothermic even in really warm water.
So instead, could it be some large predatory creature from beneath the frozen caps, like organism 46b?
Organism 46b that was purportedly brought up from a scientific ice core expedition. This is very unlikely because when you core ice for composition, the holes that are drilled are only 1 inch or 2 in diameter. And we really just don't have the technology to drag up a giant sea creature from thousands of feet under the sea ice. So I would say that 46b is probably just a myth.
Biologist Floyd Hayes takes an icy plunge into the prehistoric animal theory.
This looks a lot like a hairy creature. It could potentially be a mammoth. Mammoths have melted out from permafrost in different parts of the world.
But after further observation, Hayes realizes the fuzzy exterior of this creature might not actually be hair at all. Hayes says this rotting corpse is the perfect example of something called a globster. Say what?
A globster is a large organic mass that washes up on the beach of an ocean or river or lake. Globsters have often been identified as giant octopuses and squids, but usually they wind up being the blubber of a whale. It doesn't resemble anything that is living, and that's because it is the carcass of an animal that is decomposing. The decomposing blubber of a whale has a fine shredded appearance similar to this. I'm sure that's what it is.
Our verdict, We're sold on Dr. Hayes' assessment that this is in fact the globster of a whale carcass whose rotting blubber actually creates the appearance of hair. You know what they say, the rising tide lifts all boats. And well, apparently other creatures too. In October 2019, a team of divers sets off to explore a sunken World War II ship off the Norwegian coast. Instead, they see this. The footage shows the team in a close encounter with a huge, drifting, gelatinous blob. The video is played all over the world, and it's not lost on people that these are the exact waters the dreaded legendary sea monster called the Kraken was known to inhabit. Look at it up close. The giant floating orb is as big as a person, and when the divers turn their flashlights on it, it appears as if the sphere is filled with hundreds of thousands of tiny creatures. Also inside is an orange mass. Some speculate that this is a tentacle. Captain Nils Bodne says he's never seen anything like it in 25 years at sea.
We didn't know what it was, and as we were swimming closer, it was actually bigger and bigger. It was like an alien thing in the water.
Field researcher Ken Gerhardt speculates whether this orb could actually be the spawn of the Kraken.
So the legend of the Kraken is probably one of the most celebrated sea monsters of all time. Based on its physical descriptions, the multiple arms, the massive size, and just the reputation for being very malevolent and snatching sailors off of ships.
Legends say that the Kraken could devour a ship's entire crew at once. But despite its fearsome reputation, the monster also seemingly had its benefits. It allegedly swam accompanied by huge schools of fish. Brave fishermen could risk going near the beast to secure a bountiful catch. Unfortunately, Captain Bodne said his team didn't have much air left in their scuba tanks, so they could only document this encounter for a few minutes. But our experts had plenty of time. Let's see what they have to say. Our video forensics expert, Michael Primo, examines the footage to determine if it's too good to be real.
The way that the light bounces off and through this object helped us to authenticate this frame by frame. So at this spot, we can see, again, translucent behavior of the subject behind the object and then some sort of shadowing from his reflection. So I'm leaning more toward that this object was real.
So if it's not a hoax, what is it? Marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger weighs in.
It could be a jelly or cnidarian, which is a stinging animal. However, sea jellies have really distinct organelles and stinging cells and anatomies. This doesn't have any really defined and clear organs.
But apparently there are other deep-sea organisms that look like gelatinous blobs.
Maybe it's some really large form of a hooded nudibranch.
Conger says nudibranchs are sea slugs that secrete a sweet smell, often compared to watermelon, for defense purposes. But they are typically only about 4 inches long. So if it's too blobby to be a jellyfish and too large to be a nudibranch, what's left? Could it be an embryo from the legendary Kraken? Maybe, in a way. The Kraken was an exaggerated version of an animal we now know to be real.
We really can attribute historical sightings of the Kraken to known squid species today, like the giant and colossal squid. I wouldn't say it's out of the frame of possibility.
In fact, we've seen live and dead versions of both species dating back to 1853. And it's believed they can grow to nearly 60 feet. So maybe it is a Kraken egg. But not so fast. After a DNA analysis of the mass, scientists are issuing a new opinion.
It was determined that this was actually the egg casing of a short-finned squid. That's really cool because this object appears to be extremely large, but in reality, it was the egg case of an animal that's only about a foot long. So it's possible that such a small organism can lay such a huge egg casing because it's just full of water.
The lesson here is that in the ocean, small things can come in large packages. So our verdict? This is the egg sac of a short-finned squid. But what about that orangey mass in the center? Scientists believe it's probably ink from the female squid, who injected it while making the sphere. August 7th, 1994, a storm unlike any other descends upon the small city of Oakville, Washington. But hold up, this is no conventional rainstorm. Instead of pouring down raindrops, something else falls from the sky. Oakville resident Sonny Barclift takes these photos of what can only be described as blob rain. It's not water. The blobs appear to be comprised of a translucent, gelatinous substance. And in some photos, wait for it, they're accompanied by dead frogs. Can it get any stranger? Yes, it can. Just after the blob rain, Sonny's mother falls ill, prompting Sonny to send a sample of the blobs to Dr. Dave Little. And the lab findings only add to the mystery.
The specimen was like fresh gelatin. It was handed over to our laboratory and viewed under a microscope. But my laboratory was not equipped to ascertain the exact chemical nature.
This rain of blobs blankets a 20-square-mile area and falls a total of 6 times over 3 weeks. It falls on trees, grass, cars, and of course, people.
Within days, people were reporting vomiting, nausea, disorientation, trouble thinking. It was almost like they had the flu, but symptoms persisted for 2 to 3 months. And animals like cats and dogs that came into contact with the goo ended up getting sick and dying.
But further lab tests of the blobs do reveal a clue.
They found that the blobs contained cells with nuclei, saying that they were biological material, and found 2 very harmful types of bacteria. One is a food spoiler, and the other is found in the human gut.
So what could have caused such an inexplicable form of precipitation?
The Bible talks a lot about rains and storms. Sometimes it's a prophecy bringing something deeply negative. One Bible verse in particular, Ezekiel 38:22, talks about a plague of blood by torrents of rain and hail.
Another theory goes that this may have been the doing of a more earthly power.
Some thought that weather over the ocean had somehow stirred up enough living beings, like jellyfish, that were shot out of the water and sucked up into clouds where they were able to rain back down on residents. But no one's been able to figure out exactly what happened in Oakville.
Prior to the blob storm, Oakville residents noticed that there were military aircraft in their skies almost daily. Many began to wonder if the U.S. government had anything to do with what happened. The Air Force denied knowledge of the incident, so the townspeople had to explore other explanations. Our experts are here to help. First, we turn to physicist Matthew Shadagis. Is it possible these are jellyfish brought to land by some freak event?
Oakville is not that far from the ocean. Maybe a waterspout could have picked up some material from the ocean and deposited it as precipitation.
Waterspouts are tornado-like vortices that occur over bodies of water. In theory, they can bring sea life like jellyfish ashore, but the evidence doesn't harmonize with that theory.
I don't believe anyone found any pieces of jellyfish. And that wouldn't explain why the particular cells and bacteria were found in the blobs.
Okay, now for a grosser theory, and it may explain the human gut bacteria that was found in the blobs. Could it be from an airplane restroom? Don't think it hasn't happened. As recently as 2021, a man standing in his garden in Windsor, England, was accidentally splattered in human waste as an airplane approached Heathrow Airport. But in Oakville, the evidence doesn't line up with that theory.
The FAA has strenuously denied that we had human waste that had been dropped from airplanes. Furthermore, airlines will have a bluish tint to the fluid used in the waste system.
Blue dye is routinely added to airplane toilets as a disinfectant, but no blue is seen in the Oakville blobs.
You saw white in the photos. So not only would it have been unethical, illegal, it's the wrong color.
So could this be a weather phenomenon? Not exactly, according to meteorologist Juan Hernandez, but he thinks it's related.
Before there was any research done on this substance, this was actually called star jelly. When any animal eats the spawn of a toad or a frog, there's always some sort of jelly that is attached to those eggs.
The next part of the puzzle is moisture. When enough rainfall combines with the jelly attached to the eggs, it expands.
There was about 1/4 of an inch of rain in this specific location. 1/4 of an inch of rain should be enough to allow for the jelly to expand.
So the theory is that animals ate frog eggs, vomited them up, and then the rain expanded them. Though that would explain the frogs, Shedagis isn't sold.
We have numerous witnesses, including credible witnesses like police officers from Oakville, saying that this rained down from the sky, hitting their windshields.
And Shedagis also notes that frogs don't explain the human connection found in the samples.
I would also like to know how animals manage to swallow human gut bacteria. And if that was the case, how do you get so many animals sick at the same time, multiple times in the same area?
Our verdict, unidentified living substance. We explored theories like jellyfish, star jelly, and airplane waste, but that doesn't explain what eyewitnesses saw coming directly out of the sky.